And we're live. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show again.
Good evening from me.
Yeah, good evening from her.
And him.
And me. Yeah. Well, nice to see you all again. And we're going to be doing a talk tonight about spiritualism.
That's right.
And because Jane and I have been involved in spiritualism for quite a long time now. We met through spiritualism. And we're going to tell you a little bit about spiritualism, what it is, what you do there, what happens, and a few just ideas about
what it's like working. What's it like working on the platform?
Yeah, and how you can connect with the spirit world yourself as well, through a spiritualist church or otherwise, and how you can maintain that connection with the spirit world. How do we connect with the spirit world? But we're going to talk to you now in kind of a bit more in kind of spiritualist terms in many ways, Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got a few people joining us. We've got Justin there, I see, coming in. We've got a slight screen to the side today, so if you see us looking away, don't worry.
Angles.
And we've got a new camera angle. Let us know if you like that.
Hi,
don't
Justin.
Forget, make some comments always. If you like this setup, give us a comment. Tell us what you think. So, Kindergarten Hansen.
I like this person.
Obviously from Denmark.
They say you are so calm, peaceful, and elegant.
Yeah.
Move out the way, Craig.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's nice to see you here, and thanks for joining us. I don't think we've seen you before. Lorraine Biggs. These are a lot of new names. Wareham in Dorset. Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's always good to see you. Say hello where you come from.
Millie.
Tell us where you're from, folks.
Millie.
Yeah, Millie. She's from America, isn't she?
Mm.
Yeah. Spiritualism is in America. It started in America, actually. We'll tell you about it in a minute. And also in the UK. Frank Quinn here from Poole, so you're quite nearby. From Harrow, all of these places.
He's actually anonymous.
Anonymous.
He's from an anonymous place.
We've had anonymous on here before, haven't we? I'm sure we have.
Anonymous place.
Polly Bruni, USA, North Carolina. Suede dogs. We get an awful lot of animals joining us, don't they? They seem to like us too, these dogs. Nana. Oh yeah, we've seen you before, Nana, haven't we? We've seen you once. Because obviously you can join us from both Facebook and from YouTube. So whichever
Carol
way you want to follow us, you can follow us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook, or switch around and do both. Make sure you see us each week. We always come on Fridays. Hi, Carol. Hi, Carol. Nice to see you. Hi, John.
Oh,
where's Boo? Yeah, he's
on the bed.
Is he gone up to bed?
I think so.
Well, I might have to get up and let him through the door in a minute. Hi, technical support. Lancashire. Hey up, Bargum. And Sally Halfpenny.
Surprise.
That funny looking girl she is.
Dreadful.
That's my cousin. And
from Denmark.
Yeah, we've got a few in from Denmark. Actually, we've got quite a few friends in Denmark as well. There's a nice place.
Ava from Poole.
Poole, just down the road. Yeah. Patricia Schultz from Germany. Yes, we've seen you before, Patricia, haven't we? We've seen you coming in a few times in the past. So we're getting quite a few regulars, but remember to tell all your friends. Share it now on Facebook.
They love the lampshade on the window.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a Moroccan type style one. Yeah. John Lewis, Moroccan.
Greece.
Greece. Yeah. Oh, nice to see you from all over the place again. Yeah.
Lisa.
Milton Keynes. All these places, have spiritualist centres, including Australia, Carol.
Oh, yeah, Australia.
All over. So if you've got any, we're going to be talking about the spiritualism in a minute, but
Heather in Florida.
Remember, if you've got any questions or you've got any knowledge about spiritualism around the world, please share it, because most people don't know it exists. Graham Brooks from Surrey. We get quite a few locals today. Hey,
Mark is from Hayes Heath. Gland.
From Kurdistan, Limey.
Is that from Borak's country?
Kurdistan is amazing. I mean, I'm surprised you can get a connection in Kurdistan.
Sweden, Monica.
Amazing how we're getting people from all over. Monica. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. And Sweden as well.
Stephen.
And Glasgow. Yeah, so we got all over it. America as well. Yeah. So we're saying hello to everybody as you join. Don't forget to share this channel. If you're on Facebook, share it. If you like, give us a like while you're here too. That always helps. And don't forget to comment later. Come back again after you've seen it and put some more comments so that other people can join it. And of course, if you're new, subscribe, because then you'll get updates every week, particularly if you click that little bell thing, and that'll mean you'll get updates. Or even if you become a patron on the site, of course, you'll see all the updates if you become a patron, because we obviously post these videos and any videos that aren't for the general public and just for the patrons, you'll see
From
on
Ireland.
our patron site. All in the description below. From Ireland too, Southern Ireland, I hope.
Oh, from Italy, lovely. Angel.
God, we've got a lot of people tonight. Do you like our new graphics, by the way? We've changed them a bit late recently, or Domenico's changed them for us in the background. Wirral. Oh, right. Wirral. Don't say Joanne, we say Wirral.
Jason.
Hey,
Oz,
you missed
from Oz.
Oh, God, in the middle of the night
Did you
there,
think
Jason.
that was Ozzy Osbourne then when I said Oz?
From Oz. No, it's middle of the night. I know you've sent some messages before, Jason, haven't you? Keep missing us, I think. But it's difficult times for you.
Debbie?
Hi, Deb. You pronounce that one's name. From Iceland. Some of my books are published in Iceland, by the way. There's a few. I went on Iceland TV, and there's
you still got a parking fine in Iceland.
Something about Drolman, I think it was Dreams. Hidden Meaning of Dreams in English was published over there.
Drugs.
But Iceland, fantastic country, actually. I love Iceland.
Soggy Cornwall.
Cornwall, yeah, that's a bit like Iceland too. Yeah.
Must be awkward. Looking good.
Right.
Here we go.
Perhaps we better tell you a little bit about our involvement in Spiritualism. Noreen Blackstone. It's worth becoming a patron as you get direct responses to your questions and love. Thank you, Noreen. That's very kind of you to say that. Yes, we do try to. I try to answer as many as I can, private messages, but particularly the public messages that you put up. And we also put little behind the scenes stuff of me and Jane sometimes. And we hope to increase that as time goes on as well. We're obviously a lot of work doing all this, as you can imagine. Now, spiritualism.
Right.
All started.
Well, let's explain how it first started from the Fox sisters. Rappings and knocking on the wall.
So that was back in 1848. There was 3 girls caught in the Fox sisters. The only one I wrote. Was it 3 of them, wasn't it?
There's 2 girls.
And one of them particularly was Katie Fox. And they used to do, they had some rappings, didn't they? Noises appearing in the house. They were children at the time. And Katie used to put up the number of fingers, and the rap would go click, click, click. So if you put 4 fingers, you get 4 clicks, 5 fingers, 5 clicks, 6 clicks, and so forth. And they gradually worked out a way to communicate with what they were saying was the spirit of a dead tinker, wasn't it?
It's a bit like Morse code, isn't it?
Yeah, so that was the first, that was, okay, there's been lots of spirit communications in the past, like things like the Witch of Endor, was it? And then there was the transfigurations in the Bible and so forth, where Moses, I think, and Elijah come through, didn't they? Or something. But there's all sorts of, it's not the beginning of mediumship, but it was the beginning of what we call spiritualism, because it was on the 31st of March, 1848, that all these rappings started, which spiritualists take as the beginning of the first communications with spirit. If they'd been one day later, they would have had it on our wedding anniversary, wouldn't they? On the 1st of April, because we got married on the 1st of April. But a religious movement starting on the 1st of April, I think, would have been a bit dodgy, particularly when it's got kids involved in rapping involved. But that was in America, in a place called Hydesville in New York State.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and from that, of course, a whole big movement started, but they started getting spirit communications all over the place, starting, particularly this physical type of mediumship. First, it was
started in the Victorian times, Craig, when people in England were actually setting up seances and that, where it was done in secret, and it was for very middle class people that are very interested in it.
Yeah, because it started in America, and there was lots of other people doing particularly table tilting, like James just said there, and knocking sounds, and what we call physical mediumship, and spread rapidly around the world to England. And then it also spread to France, but it came out in a different form in France as Spiritism with Arthur Kardec. We saw the movie, didn't we?
Yes, yeah,
Interesting. A good one, wasn't it,
yeah.
that one? And that also spread over to Brazil. That became big in Brazil and South America.
Alan Kardec.
Alan Kardec, yeah.
Not Arthur.
Did I say Arthur?
You said Arthur.
Did I?
Bob's your uncle.
You're right.
You said Arthur.
Sorry, mate. But that particular part believed in reincarnation, which normal spiritualism, as it were, in the UK doesn't. And it didn't kind of call itself a church originally. It was more like a
parlour seances.
Yeah, it was just associations and organisations and lots of scattered little groups of people doing all this mediumship, you know. And a lot of it got really, it was open to an awful lot of fraud. And people like Houdini got involved in it and started to sort of big arguments about it's all fake. And then we had Arthur Conan Doyle, didn't we?
William Crook.
And William Crook and the medium that she dealt with was
Helen Duncan.
No, Florence Cook, wasn't it? He's investigated. But then also other names like Jane says, Helen Duncan and other mediums, all sorts of big names started.
Gordon Higginson.
Modern day, we had Gordon Higginson. So it started to develop all around the world. And eventually it formed into an organisation. Which nowadays is known as the SNU, the Spiritualist National Union. And it took on religious status because they were getting so much attack from religious organisation on all sides, you know. There was some positive stuff. The Archbishop of Canterbury, for example, Cosmo Lang, believed it to be okay, spiritualism, but most Christians were very anti. In fact, it wasn't until after 1950 when Winston Churchill had the Witchcraft Act repealed, because like Helen Duncan, didn't she? She was
giving secrets of wartime things in the Second World War,
and she got arrested under the Witchcraft Act. So basically, it was illegal. It was illegal to be a spiritualist. It was illegal to do mediumship until, you know, they knew that I was coming around in 1954. So obviously 4 years before they decided to repeal the laws. But it was very, very difficult for people to practice mediumship, and it still was for us, wasn't it, in the beginning stages? Yeah. I mean, the media wouldn't let us practice properly on mainstream television. I mean,
Ofcom.
Yeah, because Ofcom had us. We would demonstrate mediumship on TV.
Well, I think they
got in big trouble for us doing that. Didn't
I think they thought a lot of mediums possibly could be schizophrenic. That's why.
Well, what it was the Christians influenced the BBC in particular with saying this was necromancy. Now, necromancy is when you contact the dead in order to tell the future. So it was raising the dead. So they said, obviously, we can't have necromancy on the BBC. So therefore, all spiritualism was banned under that blanket, you see. So it became very difficult for spiritualists to function until they properly got organised. And Helen Duncan, which you were saying about, she went to jail, didn't she, with it?
First woman to be arrested.
Yeah. So that's that's a potted history of it. I mean, there's lots more, Andrew Jackson Davis and all the people that fought for it. I mean, Wilfred Owen, there was lots of big names. William Crooks, we mentioned. Arthur Conan Doyle, Wallace, what's his name, Wallace, the friend of Darwin, Russell Wallace, and so many people fought so that people like us now can actually do this, and it's still difficult. People still poo-poo mediumship. They still think it's a load of nonsense. It still doesn't get proper study, but it's had scientific support through the Society of Psychical Research. So I've talked about spiritualism. What's it like, Jen? What does a person encounter when they go to a spiritualist organisation?
It takes a lot of courage, I think, for someone to actually go to a spiritualist church, because they think that hands are going to suddenly come out the wall. They don't know what to expect. And it's like any other church. They do prayers and hymns and that. And
Though I think the church bit puts me off.
Yeah, well,
and I don't think people should be put off by the fact it's called a church. Do you?
Well, I think it's a personal choice again.
It's a philosophy in my mind.
Yeah, and then the medium, the president introduces the medium, the chairperson, and then the medium that has meditated beforehand makes a link to somebody in the audience. Unfortunately, you get so many message grabbers that put their hand up because they're desperate for a link or a message, that it's up to the spirit world to actually find that person. It can be quite draining and hard. And I mean, many a time me and Craig have travelled hundreds of thousands of miles to do a service.
Hundreds of thousands.
Well, we have.
Church on the moon, but we have travelled a lot of miles.
Oh, we have. We've been abroad with it, Craig.
We have actually. Yeah.
And well, we have.
Yeah.
Like in the States and everything, and through the pouring rain and we've done a service, free will service, and it's cost us money to do.
Yeah, I mean, spiritualism is very much on the sort of jumble cell level of its. I know, but it is.
Shocking.
I mean, you get a lot of people bringing in all sorts of junk and things, and it does get a little bit that sort of the raffles at the end can be a bit of a put off.
Well, they're getting the money in for the church.
You know, there's a lot of things that I find a modern person will find a bit of a put off because it's all a bit old fashioned, and this has always been my argument with it a lot sometimes. But if you can put all that aside, you have actually got an environment where mediumship can really flourish. It's the only place it can really flourish. And it's so much easier working in those sort of environments, isn't it?
Well, and because then we do theatres and we do a lot of shows, and that can be quite daunting for the medium because a lot of people put high expectations on things and they don't understand a medium's quite drained afterwards by bringing somebody
and
through.
You see, the thing with spiritualism is it's geared up for the medium. They know that the medium doesn't want a whole load of people coming up to them after. So they'll take the medium off into a corner and give them a cup of tea and let their energy settle down before people can sort of come and talk to them. And they'll give you time to meditate before you go on, don't they? And they also, of course, the audience themselves have been coming to mediumistic demonstrations quite a lot. I mean, you're talking to the converted on one level, but the energy is so high there sometimes if you get a good audience that the mediumship can come through with enormous detail that is much harder to give on a theatre usually, because the theatre's still got that certain amount of skeptical energy there, but you can't do it so easily on something like television because you've got the skeptical thought will stop the mediumship. But the Spiritualist church, you've got easy, isn't it? Do you think it's easy?
I think television doesn't understand it, do they? That's what it's. They don't understand.
That's right.
It.
Yes,
You're like a performing monkey, and they want you to do this and that. You've just got to be yourself. I mean, the late Doris Stokes. I mean, she travelled to Australia with her mediumship, America, and she could be in charge of her destiny. Do you remember? They had to put an extra slot on TV because they were overwhelmed.
Actually, that's a point. Get Linda Dearsley's new book about Doris Stokes that is out at the moment. You'll be able to find it on Amazon. She wrote all the voices. Oh, you got a copy of it?
Here it is.
What's it called? Voices Everywhere, The Mysterious Doris Stokes Effect. There it is, folks. There, yes, you can see it. We really like Linda Dearsley. She's a really nice lady who's also we've become friends with as well. But Doris Stokes opened up spiritualism to a big audience, because for the first time it really got onto a world audience, and particularly there in Australia.
She wrote a chapter about us.
Oh, there's a lot that she wrote about us in there too.
Not modes, wrote.
Yeah. So she opened up spiritualism to the world, really. And so did other mediums, but particularly she did. And so it's become much more commonplace, and now you can talk about mediumship like this without having to be censored to the same level that you would have been in the past.
I mean, years ago when we started doing it, it was sort of, people had to find the medium. They're attracted. Now it's like everybody's a medium.
Yeah, it's hard for the spiritualist churches to find enough mediums a lot of the time. I mean, we used to be doing, when I first started, because I didn't want people to know I was a medium, I used to I lived in Southampton, but used to just go to London to do it. So that I was known for my mediumship in London, but kept it very quiet in my hometown. because I didn't want customers knowing about it when I was in business at that time. They thought you might think you're a bit of a nutcase. And we've been all over. I mean, we used to, like you said, Joe, we travelled a lot around the country. All you get is your basic expenses, but they don't really cover it properly, do they?
Well, even when I demonstrated in Belgravia, they said, there's a little something for you, my dear. I think it was £4 at the time, and it cost me money. And I remember going into the trance room, and they said, you can't sit on that chair. That's Sir Arthur Colin Dawes' chair. I said, I'm sure he won't mind, ladies.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. I mean, you get some funny stories from Spiritualism, because the people are usually pretty open-minded and pretty cheerful. So you can say, I don't know what to say, really. There's all sorts of stories. But it was, we've got a few questions coming up now. In Canada, when I read up on spiritualist churches here, they do not seem to be the same as you talk about in the UK. Do you have any insight what your type are called in Canada? Well, we're talking about there are spiritualist organisations in Canada and Australia and America, and like I say, in France, Spiritism, and in Brazil, Spiritism, and I presume others scattered around the world. Places like Malta, for example, have spiritualist churches, and there's a few in Spain, I think, mainly the British going over there. But the way we do it, I think, is different. I mean, the main way the spiritualists work here, and we don't work in spiritualism like we used to. I used to work 3 nights a week sometimes doing churches when I was young. Then when we got married and we had children, we couldn't do that level. But here, basically, the medium will give an address. That's the two most important parts. I would chuck all the hymns out personally, but they have a few hymns in between to raise the energy. I think it sinks the energy, in my opinion. But the talk, which is usually the address that the medium will give, is not a structured type of thing. The medium will just talk, but you'll notice that when a medium talks on platform, there's messages in it for the people in the audience. It's like the spirit world continue to work through the medium when he's talking or she's talking. And that's what I do in my mystic talks, you see. I just do like I did in Spiritualist Church, and most of it's coming intuitively, working with the spirit at the same time. And you'll notice sometimes the things that Jane and I say will have been influenced in the background by the spirit world. And strangely enough, it's a bit like a paranoia. You're going to get paranoid folks, but you get messages often that we're not even aware of. That happens in spiritualism all the time.
And you know why they done singing still in the churches? Because in the Victorian times, they used to bang tambourines, and they used to bring the energy up by singing, because they think it attracted the spirit world. It probably didn't. It probably sent them the other way.
Yeah, actually, I think it probably would have worked, actually, that enthusiastic singing, but the mumbling in a spiritualist church, singing old-fashioned hymns, I don't think, it makes me feel, God, get that bloody thing over with so we can get on with the mediumship. But anyway, and then you've got the address, and sometimes you get a reading from something like Silver Birch, which is like trance mediums and things.
What's the other one you used to hate me?
Oh, what was it? Helen Steiner Rice. Oh, Helen Steiner Rice. Oh, that was awful. Insipid rubbish. But anyway, there's that. But then the most important bit on a service is the demonstration of mediumship.
Yeah, and it does take a lot of energy out of you, because you might do as many as 8 or 10, because Craig and I work very quickly. And then afterwards, as Craig says, you've got to recharge your batteries, because a medium, it can affect your pancreas, can't it, Craig?
Yeah,
so they have to give you,
I find.
yeah, they have to give you tea with sugar in. But you always get one, don't you? Always come up to you, always shake you
get
like
some
that.
funny people in the audience. I've seen transvestites in the audience there. Do you remember that? The guy, he didn't let the world know, but I could tell, the messages he was getting. And then
well, people's teeth dropping down.
People with that Betty with the white makeup. She looked like a ghost. She's terrifying.
I think what's funny, she wheeled a lighthouse in. Called the flex.
Yeah, she brought that lighthouse because she used to say she used to believe she got messages through this lighthouse. Like this big, wasn't it? And she used to wheel it in, and had a dangerous flex, which was like
City Cat. Do you ever have dead people that come through who have any angry messages? Well, sometimes they do, but then the person it's given to. It might be like there's two husbands that passed in the spirit world, and the husband that's the closest to the person remaining on the earth plane comes in, because sometimes, you know, I haven't had anybody that's, if you could say, come through really angry to harm anybody, because the spirit world wouldn't allow that, would they, Craig?
No, but I've certainly, many a big argument has been
Over wheels.
I've seen people, you know, they say, "Oh, I've got describe the person's mother in spirit," and say, give some information that proves it. Don't bring her in. I don't want to speak to her. I've said, "But it's your mother. I've got a message from her." No, I don't care if she's sorry. I don't want to know her. You know, seen lots of messages like that. I think you've had that too.
Yeah, well, it's angry with the person on the earth plane.
Yeah, there's still unresolved energy. You know, they don't all become gods and saints when they go to the spirit world. They're still filled with the same idiosyncrasies and problems that we've got in this life.
I think you're very blessed if you do get a message from a medium, actually, and they make a link and a connection, because people think if they go to a medium, they click the fingers and it just happens. It doesn't happen like that.
I think one of the things also, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Jane, but I think one of the most important things about spiritualism is that when a person's a medium on a spiritualist platform, if they're not very good and if they're useless and if they can't do it, they don't get booked again. So you don't get them. So you begin to find who the real mediums are. You don't get the people that are going to stand up there holding up tarot cards saying, "I've got this message and this message," or the fakes, because they've got no way they can cheat through spiritualism. So you do get the honest, you get a much better chance of meeting honest mediums. And of course, there's no money in it, because, you know, people put a pittance in the collection, and there's no fame in it either in spiritualism, because, you know, you might get famous within spiritualism, but that's not like becoming famous on the TV or YouTube or things like that, you know. So it does give you an option to find genuine mediums. It's a place you can look to find genuine mediums. You do find some that are a bit deluded, I think, and some that I would say shouldn't really be on there at all, and some that just seem to give psychic stuff that they pass off as mediumship. So you've got to be discerning. But if you're going to see proper mediums, actually, spiritualism is a really good place to start, wouldn't you say?
It is, and you know if it's a true medium, because they should be able to tell you the person's name, how they passed, what condition they passed with. They should be able to tell you everything you've been doing in the physical world, and they should know things about you that nobody else would know.
Yeah,
the audience.
Yeah. I'm not one to recruit for any form of religion, because it's not really a religion in the sense that it has a belief system. The idea is that you go and they prove it to you, you know, and you can just go along, you know, and usually it's 6:30 on a Sunday evening in the UK, and you can type in my local spiritualist church, and you'll probably find it in the UK. I don't know quite how it works in Australia and America and so forth, or quite how the services and things work there. But it's a pretty good structure. It's not bad, you know.
Right. Yeah. Have you channeled spirits in India during your trips? Well, you have had the spirit world round, just when you went stay at Sai Baba's.
Yeah, I've
ashram.
not done a demonstration of mediumship in India. I've given a lot of readings to people from India, and it's much harder because they're coming from a different mindset in that they're assuming, have they reincarnated yet? So there's much more of the reincarnation sort of quality to it. But I do find it quite interesting when you do communication with somebody from India, because I kind of understand a lot of the Indian stuff because I've studied it. But no, we've not done a demo there.
No, but I do have a lot of Indian people that come, and their loved ones come through.
A lot of the theosophy was also around at the same time as spiritualism, and someone like, for example, Madame Blavatsky, she was a theosophist, which was very, very, very similar to mediumship in the early days. And she toured all of India, giving demonstrations of mediumship. So I don't know if any mediums have modern day ones. I can't think of any. So if you're in India, you want us to come out, we'll set up a demonstration in Calcutta.
Here, India, here he comes.
Any excuse to go to India. Diana Karak, like Karnak, almost. How did you both, in the beginning of your work, deal with psychic information that others couldn't see or sense?
Well, it was just a natural process, really, because you're clairsentience, and you use your clairvoyance and clairaudience and that, and it's just natural for us. So we don't know any other life, do we?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Well, she means, how do you deal with it? I should think.
Right. So how do you deal with the fact that people don't believe you? You know, isn't it? Perhaps she's saying there
I don't
that
think
you
so.
see something and others don't.
Well, yeah, but the others haven't got a gift, have they?
No, that's
so
right.
we're different. We're different than most people.
The thing is, when you develop your spiritual gifts, the whole thing, right from the point you sit in circle, because normally you sit in see another thing Spiritualism does is it trains people. Like there's the Arthur Findlay College, which is well worth looking up. They do courses, but you sit, like you say,
7 years,
at least 7 years, usually most people, and you sit in a circle and you practice on each other until you know that the information is correct. You know, you might be able to give all sorts of information, but if nobody can say yes to that information, that's right, then you might as well just be saying any old thing. So that's where you develop first in a circle. Then you would go out as what you call a fledgling medium. So you go out on a few demonstration nights as a group. And then as the people begin to become more confident, they would then start to do as a guest medium, because the mediums travel around all the different churches and centres and temples and so forth. And then, then you just develop your mediumship then and give it 15 more years and your mediumship's developed.
Well, it depends. It depends. Even if someone's set in a circle, it doesn't necessarily crave they're going to be a medium.
That's what I say. It takes a lot. The actual development of mediumship and the sustaining mediumship.
I believe you're born like it. You're born like it.
But one of the other things we said at the start is we talk to people, how do you connect with the spirit world? Because you can obviously go to see spiritualists and go and see mediums and get messages. But you can also sit yourself, you see. I mean, one of the best ways is if you're able to, how do you contact a loved one if you're not a medium?
Well, very difficult, because most people, they might dream of a loved one and then they want to go and see a medium. Yeah,
so if you're not a medium, you'd have to see somebody else. And I wouldn't suggest things like artificial means like Ouija boards, because that just ends up in absolute chaos usually, because you haven't got the protection there. But it doesn't mean, I think everybody up to a point has a certain amount of mediumistic attunement. I mean, how many people out there watching this now, put your comments now and later, how many times have you seen people you loved? I mean, when the person dies, it's extraordinary how many people say, I saw granddad or I saw mum, isn't it? The number of people you talk to don't claim to be mediums. So it's a gift that we kind of get spontaneously sometimes. How would a person connect, would you say?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, perhaps you weren't there when that loved one passed to the higher realms, so perhaps somebody's giving you proof or something. Sometimes people say, I saw it at this corner of my eye, I saw my father, I'm sure I did. Yeah. And perhaps they did.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of trusting it in some way. Dreams as one way that I think people often get a connection, don't they? Signs up to a point, I think. I'm always a bit worried about signs.
Hearing a voice?
Yeah. Sometimes a smell.
But not that type of means smell. Perfume or tobacco, not a man smell.
But that is a very common way that people feel that they smell the smell of the 4711 that my nan used to wear.
Yeah, that's good.
Things like that.
Cooking smells.
And cooking smells, but extraordinary and unusual. When my dad died, this house filled with the smell of jasmine.
Yes,
do you remember that?
Yeah.
There was the smell of it was thick smell of jasmine. And then also when my dad dies, everybody's clock stopped, didn't they? Watches stopped.
Yeah,
all at the same time.
I used to own a beach
hut places,
and it's the mobile phone and grandchildren. It just rang.
Yeah, that's it. They all rang, and it was my uncle's one when it all stopped, wasn't it? That's it. When Uncle Gordon died. God, amazing. So we get signs like that, and I think dreams will connect you, but also I think in meditation. You attune yourself and you think about the spirit world. I think you automatically connect a little bit there, don't you?
Well, I think it's like surrendering, really, isn't it? You want to, if you've lost a loved one, you want so much proof that they've gone peacefully and that they're safe and that. And sometimes the spirit world do organise that. You'll be in a special place at a special time, something happens.
And actually, I think to trust the fact that you've got that those things you're getting from your intuition are real. You know, you might just get a feeling of like, it might be a memory, but it might sometimes seem more than a memory, doesn't it? And it's a bit like that when we do mediumship. It's almost like I'm getting a memory of somebody, but I'm getting a memory of somebody for somebody else, aren't they? So I'm getting a memory of the person, you know. So supposing was your grandma, I get a memory as if I remember your grandma.
But
it comes like that almost.
Children come through very quickly, in my experience, to the parents. And I have a lot of people sent from Winchester Hospital that have lost children and babies. And I think that's quite a nice thing that we send them here.
Sometimes a spirit link can come through the same day. I mean, I've quoted it before, but I remember at a Spiritualist church describing this person who's being shaved. That's how I see him laid down on a slab,
God.
being shaved as we speak. And the woman said, I've just come from the morgue now. He died today and they're shaving him as we speak. They should be anyway, preparing his body. So that was the same day. That was a real startling
I've had
piece
similar,
of evidence, that one.
Where a lady passed about 4 o'clock in the morning, came to me, and her daughter rang me at 9 o'clock. And I said, have you just lost a mother at 4 o'clock this morning? Yes. I said, she's already been here. I will see you today.
Yeah. I mean, I know that lots of times that's happened when people have come for readings. They come the day of the death, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which is not the most recommended way of doing it, actually. You need time to settle. Okay, Full Monty's saying, just wanted to say hi to my favourite Ghostbusters. yeah.
You're
Lighten it up a
busted.
bit.
You're busted. You're busted.
Yeah, I suppose Ghostbusting's not really part of the Spiritualist message, but we have done work with the Spiritualist Church to help people, haven't we? They've often gone to the Spiritualist Church because they've had hauntings and things and asked us to sort
we've done a lot of that.
I mean, years of it. I mean, we did years and years in spiritual since I was about 24 or 3. So that's a long time.
A long time.
Very long. A guy saying, hi, Craig and Jane. Many mediums speak in terms of on light, e.g., his light is quite dim or bright. How do you see spirits in lay person's terms? Well, if you have this experience when you die of going towards the light, you might have been reincarnated as a moth. No, light. We do speak in terms of light, don't we?
Well, it's like going towards the light, brightness, and that, because the endorphins in your brain, they make all these different things happen. And suddenly it's like your top of your crown chakra opens, so the spirit leaves the body and goes through that crown chakra and closes. It's just like when you're a baby coming in the world, that chakra is open and then it closes. It's just like that.
Now, I think he's also asking there about kind of like we talk in terms of, you know, the light round you is a bit dim at the moment. We're perhaps talking more in terms of like the aura, the energy field around a person. And of course, the people in the spirit world, we often see as beings of light. And in fact, people describe consciousness as being light. You know, they speak about the enlightenment as being light. Spiritual things, the closest thing we can describe the idea of the spirit and the consciousness itself is light, the light of consciousness. So, and the light of life, really.
Go towards the light.
Yeah. So I suppose, hopefully that answers your question.
How come mediums that go into trance, old films on TV, old photos, and how have you
exude and show ectoplasm substance around them? You never see that sort of thing on TV today. Does it really happen?
And it does.
So she's asking about ectoplasm. Does it happen?
It does.
Certainly the early spiritualists.
I think she means how come you don't see it on camera and you capture it on camera. I have seen ectoplasm. It's nothing to be frightened of. It comes from the solar plexus here and it builds up, and you can actually put your hand, and sometimes you can feel a spirit hand. It feels quite warm, doesn't it, Craig?
Yeah, ectoplasm is almost like a
substance,
a real life force, a real substance.
Come on then.
Here comes Boo. He's going to jump up in a minute, and he'll be coming to see his fan base. Yeah.
Come on, Boo.
Most of the stuff you see on TV relating to mediumship has been hyped up to the point to make it entertaining, hasn't it?
Entertainment, yes.
The whole idea with ghosts and things, there's always entertaining, terrifying spirits that can move things and do all this.
He's watching.
I mean, the
us on
reality of
telly.
it's not nothing like that really, but it is even more fascinating because it's real. You know, I mean,
Yes.
things do move.
Seeing is believing, isn't it? You've got to see it.
So I've not been to a full physical mediumship demonstration. I mean, the last there were two mediums that were around in recent years. One was Leslie Flint, who used to have a projected voice around the room, and that had been witnessed by an awful lot of people. There's a number of mediums that are out there still that have talked about Leslie Flint and seen that. I never witnessed Leslie Flint's mediumship, nor did I witness Gordon Higginson's mediumship, who was another fantastic medium, and he would he would go into a trance, and he'd go into trance and he'd give off the ectoplasm, and the ectoplasm will build up into a full figure in the room. And I know my friend Vi Kipling saw it all, and she said my mother appeared in the room, and nobody can tell me that wasn't my mother that I saw there. That was not cheesecloth. That was not cheating. I saw my mother's face in all the detail, and she was a close friend of mine, and she sat with Gordon Higginson and saw that. So, you know, on the basis of that, I accept it as real.
Right. Hi, Craig and Jane. Does a candle help spirits communicate? I lost my brother suddenly last week and hope he's with my dad now in spirit. I think it's a nice thing to light a candle in memory of a loved one and sending your thoughts up. And I feel it does bring them closer to us.
I think it's a nice focal point, isn't it, Tara? Sorry you've lost like that. It's awful, and it must still be very painful. But I wouldn't go interpreting twists of the candle flame and saying that's him, it moved and things. I think the connection comes on an intuitive level, really, an intuitive knowledge, and just know that they're all right. Actually, people worry a lot when you've just lost someone. You think they've not crossed over, as they call it.
You're in shock, and you're not expecting
all the spirits pass to the spirit world. I mean, without exception, we go there. There's nothing. It's natural. It's a natural process, which to us seems completely unnatural.
We're a living death anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, they say it's just like taking off an overcoat and moving into.
You've got a heavy overcoat, right?
But it must feel like that when you shed the body. They say it's like suddenly you feel free of a heavy overcoat. You know,
you're surrendering.
I've heard that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Is this
That's
true?
true. It's true.
100% true. Yeah. If you're a medium, if you're a fully developed medium, psychic stuff is sort of a lower part of the mediumship. You can connect to someone psychically, which means that you might pick up things about the person's life and things like that. A medium is a big step from psychic to mediumship, a big step in most cases. And then you're connected with the spirit world. And when the spirit world connects, we give information about the spirit communicator. And that's when incredible stuff comes through medium. People always come to me and Jane when they book readings, and they say, I want to know about my job. I want to know about my future. I want to know this, that, and the other. And actually, you all miss the point. It's the mediumship that's the interesting thing. You know, if you get a really good connection, if we give you a really good connection from the spirit world, all sorts of stuff comes through, stuff you wouldn't expect in detail. So mediumship is a very, very beautiful gift. It's the most spiritual aspect of this, of all these things of clairvoyance.
But we're also clairvoyant as well, don't forget. Right, Nicholas, a little bit of topic. How are you able to know somebody's past life? Do you receive a similar message as when you connect with the dead?
No, it's more intuitive with that, actually. It's the spirit messages are more accurate and more reliable than anything that comes through us psychically or anybody psychically. I mean, you've got to be a bit cautious, you know, when we're giving messages of our own thoughts can get involved. The other person who's receiving the message's thoughts can get involved. But when you get it from the spirit world, it's much, much more accurate if it can come through. And past life stuff's always very difficult, actually, because you can't verify it in the same way you can when you're giving something that's from the spirit world. You know, if I describe a person's granddad, they know that granddad went to sea or granddad had a wooden leg or whatever. They know those facts. But how do we verify the reincarnation stuff? And that can only, I suppose, be verified by seeing different mediums and finding if you've got a message. And most mediums don't normally give all the reincarnation stuff. They stick to the spirit communication. Though I know people are interested in it, and I know you were, Nicolado. So I suppose you have to sort of test it through different sources and go on a search through different people. And sometimes if a piece of really good information comes up that's verifiable in this world, then we can get it through the records. And I think some of the most interesting stuff for that has actually come not so much through psychics and mediums, but through past life regression, through hypnotism.
The Nadi Oracle tells you about
the Nadi
past
gives
lives.
it too, of course, but that's a whole different business because tracking that down, so most people won't be able to do that.
In a lifetime.
Jane and Craig, have you been to the oldest spiritualist church in the UK in Knightley, West Yorkshire? No, we actually. We've been to some quite old ones. I've been to Edinburgh. I remember I did. We did. SAGB was a pretty well established one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Most of the London ones were pretty old. I think Fulham I used to do. Which ones did we do? Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. That used to be a nice Spiritualist church.
Camberley's nice.
Camberley we did a lot. Well, that's only a small church, not been there for long. Did all the Isle of Wight ones, did all the ones in Hampshire, did all the ones in Surrey, did all the ones in London, pretty much all of them, I suppose. So I'm not sure which are the oldest. And of course, there's Arthur Findlay College with Stansted Hall, which is probably the oldest of the lot in terms of building. Yeah, they're all pretty old churches. So yeah, we didn't. They are all. It's quite. When I first. Because I developed my mediumship outside of spiritualism. I'd never been in a spiritualist church before I did mediumship. And then suddenly they said, come and demonstrate. What do you mean demonstrate? Come into a spiritualist church and demonstrate. Well, I've never been in a spiritualist church, except once when I was a nipper of about 14, when we went in and we didn't know what it was all about. So when they took me up and said, demonstrate in front of that audience, I was amazed that people were open to this, and I was amazed that there were so many of these places in every town, including I think 4 in Southampton where I lived at the time. So it's quite an eye opener when you suddenly realise, God, there's a place to demonstrate all this mediumship. You don't realise how many there are around, and then you hear they're also all over the world as well. But it's still quite small.
Right, sweet dogs. Is it true that people who have passed violently or an illness take longer to come through? Sylvia Brown said they have to go through a healing process before they can communicate. Well, people do have to. It depends what illnesses they have. I mean, people with cancer take longer to be healed. It depends. I mean, Sylvia Brown said a lot of things, didn't she?
Yeah, well, we'll forget about Sylvia Brown. But the traditional spiritualism definitely does say that they talk about the halls of healing, and that a person will go through a recovery period. I mean, I suppose it varies from person to person. If you've had a lifetime of constant illness and your mind has been in that constant routine of pain, it will still probably, those routines will probably still be in your mind, even though you haven't got a body to feel the pain, as it were. So I think it takes a while to break from the fact that I am a free spirit and I'm free from all that. So that's where the healing would come in. A particularly interesting one on that point was one of my friends suffered from schizophrenia, and he ended up going into a petrol station and pouring petrol all over himself and lit a match and went up like a torch, And he came through a medium that he wasn't a friend at the time, but he became a friend. But a medium that I went to see, and the medium was going all hot. God, I'm hot, I'm burning up. And he said his name and got it correct. And he said that he wants to now say to you, taking that condition away from me, and he wants to say to you that he's been over here being healed. He's being healed psychologically and physically, and he's beginning to recover. But he had to go through a period of healing. So that, for me, was verified proof of that, because my friend, how would that medium know that my friend had set himself up on fire and lived for a long time afterwards, unfortunately. But, without anybody knowing who he was. But, so that was, to me, said, yes, he was healed. And he went through probably one of the most dramatic type of Yes, you could choose. Yes. So there you go. So
Do you retain your same personality and spirit, or can that change? You do still have your personality, don't you? So you give proof. It depends how somebody passed. It depends if they've learnt the lessons here as well.
very interesting question now.
Mm.
I would say that you do retain your personality, and you know yourself as yourself. You still know who you are. I'm still Craig when I get there. But I think you also kind of open up to parts of your personality you've forgotten about, as it were. You kind of find your bigger self. You find your previous lives, perhaps. You find your over self. I remember, if you've ever read the book by Carl Jung when he wrote his autobiography called Memories, Dreams, Perceptions, Reflections rather. He was on the point of dying and was going back and forth into the spirit world, and he wrote dictated the last part of his autobiography at the very end of his life, and was talking about the next life. And he saw his surgeon come to him in a dream, and his surgeon was dressed in the clothes of a priest of Kos, right? And he thought, this is strange. Why am I seeing that? And he said, this is my form in the afterlife. The surgeon was still alive, but that surgeon actually died, and he had to have a different surgeon do the operation. So the surgeon had come to him in his, what Jung called his primal form, Jung described it as. So perhaps, and I don't know, but perhaps we have what Jung called the primal form. Perhaps he was seeing something. This isn't spiritualist philosophy, but great man I greatly admire. And I think perhaps we do. Our personality may be different in the
What
spirit
William
world.
Blake, Craig?
What about William?
The artist, didn't he have a vision before he died?
Yeah, well, lots of people have images, and I don't think he talked about the primal form like that, but
he's talking about the afterlife.
yeah, many people talk about the afterlife, of course. Yeah, great people, but yeah, that's just answering the question about the personality. There, does it change? Maybe
what
it does.
Beautiful name. How do you ground your energy? When I do energy work like today, I was sitting and the room started spinning around me. Well, obviously you're doing too much then if the room was spinning around her, wasn't it?
Yeah,
she was drained.
I mean,
She's giving all the time.
I mean, when we first started doing mediumship, I gave up my advertising agency and said we're going to be a full-time medium. If suddenly to find an income, you had to do so many readings to be able to sustain, to make enough money to pay your tax and live. That I remember I used to go out and do groups of people at their home, party plans we called them. I remember doing something like 20 or 30 people one evening, one day, one after the other, 10-minute readings and 50 minutes. And I remember sitting on the table and on the chair and by the table, and the whole room, I've never seen anything like it. It was like I was on a merry-go-round. It was spinning round at rapid speed. So you might have had a similar thing to me. I was basically overdoing it, and I was dangerously overdoing it. And I think when that happens, you have to stop and give yourself a rest, because this work is exhausting. When I was young, I used to do too many readings. Now I find, I do 4 readings in a day. The next day I have to take the day off. I can hardly move. Yesterday I was tired out. Because it's very, 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 very taxing on the spiritual energy. Right, last questions of the day, folks. And as the message says there, don't forget to like and share this video. If you share it, even if you share it now after it's finished, your friends will see it. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Click the little bell thing at the bottom of the screen there, because then you'll get regular updates all the time. And if you really like it, become a patron, because if you become a patron, which is in the comments below, there's a link for that, and I'll probably put some little cards up at the top to become a patron. But if you become a patron, you can sort of support the channel, support what we're trying to do, help us with our work towards ultimately getting a big studio together for this, a spiritual center together where we can have people from the real world, and also do some work helping the poor in India and things, which you'll see on our videos about this. So if you do that, you become a patron. It supports us, but also there's a lot of little extras that you'll get in the background too, and be able to communicate with us more regularly. So last question.
Read it, Craig.
Or questions.
Tom.
Have you ever sat in a seance room with a deep trance medium and spoke with spirits, and done this on a weekly basis or just as a one-off? Well, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I used to sit with Peter Close, he used to have his spirit guide called Rama come through. And I used to get in arguments with Rama because I always wanted to make sure Rama could prove who he was, you know. So it was a bit hard on Peter when he was doing that as the medium. But Rama gave some pretty excellent evidence. And I was asking Rama all about the future. That's where I got some of my predictions for the future from.
I remember when we went to Brighton, we saw a chap called David, whose spirit guide came through him, a priest, and we predicted the birth of a baby. And he didn't know I was 6 weeks pregnant. Do you remember?
Yeah.
He couldn't have possibly have known.
Yeah.
And then Doris Stokes came through and said, "Fancy seeing you two here, lovely."
Yeah, she brought through Doris Stokes. It was more than just channeling.
Yeah.
All sorts of random stuff. And I did also I used to also go to a woman when I was first learning, before I really sat in a circle. You know, I went to a woman who used to sort of do a regular trance. And to be honest, now I look back at it, now I know what mediumship's all about. The nonsense she used to spout, you know. She used to go on another Dolores Cannon. I know a lot of you like her, but I mean, that was a load of stuff that was fantasy. And people were sitting there thinking, "Oh, marvelous, marvelous." And I thought, no proof, you know, no evidence, nothing to prove that we've got the connection here. And she couldn't do regular mediumship or stand on a platform and give a message. So I'm a bit critical of trance mediumship, if I'm honest. But if you see good trance mediumship, then it's marvelous. And it's like mediumship generally, you know, like one of those questions earlier, psychic is not medium, you know, medium is another thing. And same too, inspirational speaking is not mediumship. It's coming from the unconscious often, but trance mediumship is another thing, up there with the physical mediums. When will quarantine be over? Can you predict it? Because I really want to visit UK and see your show. Yes, you'll be welcome. We get funny. Jane said to me the other day, "I've got a feeling we'll be meeting you here in the UK." Yeah. You said that the other day, actually. Will. So there, you've been thinking about it. I believe some of the Nadis have said that it will be fully over by May. You know, that's what it said before. Springtime. I was thinking of May 2020, next year. But May next year. Yeah, so definitely. Fully over by. So, man, I don't think we'll ever be fully over it, because you never wipe this virus out in places like the Amazon jungle, will you? I mean, I think we've got to face it, it's here. But I think vaccinations or whatever, I know some of you don't like the idea of vaccinations, but the immunity and vaccinations, I think it will all ultimately start to bring us back to normality again.
Well, the world's changing.
I think we'll get it by Christmas. I think we'll have a vaccine.
No, I think it'd be by, well, maybe. Usually a vaccine takes 2 years to produce.
Yeah, but they've got, in fact, right here, we're based near Winchester, but in Southampton, not far from us. There's very, very optimistic thoughts about that, you know, there's something on the way. So be hopeful. I feel it's on its way and we'll be able to get to normal. Well, thank you, guys. Jing Chang Chin, thank you.
Thank you.
And Majbrit from Denmark again, I think, with a handsome name, is it? Or was that Iceland? I don't remember. But yeah, thank you, guys. Thanks for joining us. Do keep subscribing to the channel, like I said.
Lovely. I love Anna.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, folks, again. It's really nice of you to all keep supporting us. We're always on Fridays at 7:30, 7 o'clock, isn't it? 7 o'clock on Fridays. And you just check your time out around the world. We're always trying to come on at the same time. Yeah, Buenos Aires. So it's all, whatever time you came on today, you'll be able to see us again. I like the new changes, font and angle. Yeah, I think it is cleaner, isn't it, Lita? And I was missing your office, but the change in angle is strangely comforting. Yeah, well, I still do stuff from the office, but the office is more like the, I do ones where I do my mystic talks in there. And we'll have our own studio in time, thanks to the patrons that are helping us, which we are still working on. But unfortunately, the Iris is stopping.
Oh, you have a great weekend too.
Yeah, and thanks for joining. Hopefully we help clear things up
John.
with you all, you know, break some of the myths and misconceptions, don't we? So, you know, hopefully you'll learn a bit from watching these. My favourite psychics.
And my famous man that eats a lot. Have one for me tonight, avocado.
My famous a gourmet, isn't it? What's
that one? That man that ate a lot,
Mr. Creosote.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Etruscans, was it? Not the Etruscans. What were the Epicurean? You're an Epicurean. That's the name.
Oh,
You're an
thank
Epicurean.
You, Catherine.
Yeah. Ancient Greek Epicureans.
Thank you, Angel.
Yeah, thank you, guys. It's nice to see you all. Yeah, Lorraine, thank you for coming along with you. It's really nice. I feel like we've got a little bit of a spiritual family going on here in a funny sort of way, because we're getting to know some of you.
Thank you, Jason.
And it's nice. And of course, you go through the patrons, you will get to know you even better. But it's always nice if you leave comments,
thank you, Jenny.
particularly later on. Okay, I suppose we better be saying goodbye soon.
I know, Sylvia. Lovely lady with horses.
All right, she got her horses on the bit, yeah.
Yeah, Peter T. Tried to get on this.
Yeah, where's
we
Boo
did.
Gone? Boo. Hey, let's get him. Let's get him just before we go. Come and say goodbye. Boo's gonna say goodbye. Here he is. This is the one that controls us in the background, isn't it, Boo? Yeah, you're the one in charge.
He wants to get down.
No, he's camera shy today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, well, we're going to say bye now. Okay, folks, thanks for joining us. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye for now.